Welcome to the Becoming a Pilot podcast, where we share first-hand experiences, practical advice, and insights from pilots at every stage of their journey. I'm your host, Dave Angus, and whether you're just starting out or working towards your next rating, we're here to help you navigate the path to becoming a pilot. So buckle up, stay tuned, and let's talk all things aviation.
This podcast is brought to you by Genesis Flight College, Canada's premier flight centre. With an advanced fleet of Diamond aircraft and experienced instructors, Genesis Flight College provides top-tier training in the heart of southern Georgian Bay. Ready to start your journey to becoming a pilot? Inquire today.
Welcome back to the Becoming a Pilot podcast, where we teach all things about becoming a pilot and taking your next step in your aviation career. My name is Dave.
I'm Tyler.
And today we're going to talk about kind of winter operations, right? We're in that time of year here in Collingwood where we went from nice 35-degree summer, 40 this year, 40-degree summer days, and now to today is -5 with snow and slush and ice and...
It's perfect. I love it.
Yeah. We got a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the winter operations. So to some newer pilots that haven't got into it yet, it's good to kind of know the challenges with the winter. But this will pertain a lot to current pilots and current students here as well. Just kind of things to think about in the winter, because we kind of get out of practice of it, right? All summer we get spoiled by blue skies and no rain this summer, but it's normally pretty good weather overall, and we don't have to think about these little things, right? So Tyler, I'll get you to start. We'll kind of go from the start of when we go through dispatch or whatever you do, get your own airplane.
Yeah.
So we'll go from the beginning of now. We've walked up to our airplane. We're starting our walk around. What are some things we want to start looking at? Right.
I would say right before that, definitely come to the airport prepared with winter clothes. Not wearing sandals or proper foot attire and jackets. Dress for the weather. And so we get the aircraft and we want to do our walk around, right? So I think we talked about the walk around on a previous podcast.
How to do one? Yeah, we've talked about how to do them.
So you know how to do the walk around, and the students essentially checking the aircraft out, and they get the keys. They want to confirm that there's no contamination on the surfaces, on any critical surfaces.
That? What would contamination be?
So it could be frost, could be ice, snow, but mainly this time of year it's frost if the plane's left outside, or it could be snow or ice caused from just freezing rain or anything like that.
Sure.
So none of the critical surfaces can have contamination on them prior to flying the aircraft. So
and just to kind of so critical surfaces, that'd be anything that's really causing the airplane to fly. Yeah. We say the whole airplane but really your wings, your elevator, your ailerons, vertical stab, rudder, horizontal stab, all that stuff, right? Really, ideally, we'd have it nowhere, prop to but most of the time it's going to be on the wings because everything falls down and it's facing up, right? So cool. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So you do that inspection, ensure that that the aircraft has no contamination on it. And then you'd want to check, I guess, you'd want to ensure that the weather itself is good to fly.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So we check, our GFA and then our freezing level, upper and lower freezing levels. And
Yeah, and we want to, it's a lot more than just looking outside and seeing blue skies, but it's also dependent on now what are we doing that day, right? In the middle of summer, if we're doing an IFR flight, I'm not really too concerned about going through the clouds. It's not going to cause ice. When we're only, we don't fly all that high. Whereas in the wintertime, our freezing level could be surface, right? Yeah. Today it's surface. So, so if we went into any clouds here, we're going to be getting ice. So that's obviously a concern. Now, just taking a step back about a certain thing. So when we get into the airplane, so here we have winter blankets on every aircraft. That helps keep the heat in. We hangar all the airplanes at night, so they shouldn't have any contamination on it, but they could. They could have frost. Frost would be the biggest one.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure those blankets are on, and then if you have the ability to have a block heater or an engineered Tanis heater, whatever you have,
Have it plugged in.
Yeah, have it plugged in, right? That's going to save you time. That's the biggest thing. It is hard on the engine to start it up when the oil is really, really cold, if it's been stored outside and not plugged in, because the viscosity is so much less. So that oil takes a long time to sludge its way through the engine.
Yeah, right.
But, you know, it can be done and it's fine. But the biggest thing is now you're going to sit there because your engine oil is, you know, 30 degrees and now it's got to make its way up to 85 before you even taxi, or 100 to run up, which takes time, right? So time is money, as we know in flying.
Yep.
So to minimize that, you know, using a block heater, using the blankets. So just that's also a reminder. We'll talk about it at the end. Is like put it on after the flight too. It keeps the heat in, right? We don't want to shock cool that engine.
Exactly.
So great. So we've checked the weather. We're going up to just do a normal upper air work flight. There's no clouds. It's blue sky, so we're not worried about the freezing level per se. What's kind of the next thing? We've started taxiing now.
So when we're taxiing around, obviously in the wintertime, we could get some puddles, some slush that's on the taxiways or leaving the apron. So we want to ensure that anytime we taxi through any water or slush, that we take it slow. If we can't absolutely avoid it altogether, take it very slow, because you've checked the aircraft and you basically ensured before you started it up that there was no contamination. But what happens when you go through that puddle or that slush is the tires kick it up onto the underside of the wing.
Right.
And it can get on the brakes themselves.
Sure.
And then you do your run up, you take off. Once you're up in the air, it's much colder, right? So that contamination or that water or slush can now freeze to the surface. And there you go. You have potentially contamination on your critical surfaces, right?
Yeah. And you were saying with the brakes as well, it's super important, because then the next time you touch your brakes,
if they're frozen,
they're good. Or it's if they're not, and then they freeze when the pads hit the rotor. Yeah. Now they're frozen to there. You're gonna drag the brakes. You could pop a tire, and that's even more important once you get up in the air, because you're flying around, and your brakes and everything and rotors, let's say you were on them, they create a little bit of heat at least. Like, you shouldn't be dragging them, but if there's a little bit of heat, then it's going to stay moist, and then you take off and you tap your brakes to stop the wheels, because Dave and Tyler always tell us to do that.
Right.
And now they're frozen.
Yeah.
Right. So now you come into land, and it's, the impact should release that, but it might not. And you might end up blowing a tire or something, right?
Right.
Cool. So avoid puddles. Pick your path, pick your taxiway. Ultimately, you don't want to be doing a serpentine down the taxiway. We want to try to stay on the taxi line as much as possible, but where we can, where it's safe, and we have a good lookout and we can see what's around. We're not going to run into anything, right?
Yeah.
So we said a little bit about the run up, right?
I was just going back to that too.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the run up, you want to make sure that your TMP gauges, your temperature and pressure gauges are up, and mainly the oil temperature to do your run up, and take caution for our aircraft, it needs to be at 100 before you go all the way up to 2,000 RPM.
Yeah, I think that's a Lycoming standard pretty well right across the board,
Yeah, so, if you're waiting, it's at 85 or so. You can go into your pre-takeoff brief, so that would eat up some time, and then ideally just bring up the power slowly up to the temperatures, and then you're checking everything as you usually would for your run-up, and then you should be good to go after that.
Awesome. Okay, so we've done our run up now, which is kind of served two purposes. One, we're checking to make sure everything works, but it's also helping us warm up even more past that 100 degree, now to an operational temperature.
Yeah.
So we've got to that operational temperature. Everything's looking good. Plane's good. We go out to the runway and we take off. What are some winter concerns that we need to be worried about now?
Yeah. Freezing, obviously, at whatever altitude. So you take the surface temperature minus 2 degrees per thousand. That'll give you your 0 degree freezing kind of
your
scenario there.
Yeah.
Right. And then, any local phenomena. We get a lot of snow squalls off the lake, so that stuff pops up pretty quick. But I would say overall that's pretty much it. Do you think there's anything else?
I would find so the other this would have been on Friday. We had a little bit of rain. There's a little bit of precip, a little bit of snow coming through. There's a little bit of mix, right?
Yeah.
Those are the days that we need to really be on on high aware because
For clear and rime ice.
but also like we take off and maybe it's on the ground, maybe it's 2 or 3 degrees. It's not a big deal. It's not sticking. And we get up in the air and now it's freezing.
Yeah.
Now we got rain coming down. Really probably subject to clear ice, right? So we have 2 real big types of ice that we are concerned with, and that's rime ice and clear ice. So the difference between the 2, rime ice, I always say that's you open your freezer and you see ice on the side of it.
Yeah.
That's rime ice.
Good.
Clear ice, that's like your skating rink, right? Nice and smooth, uniform, right? That's that big droplet, it's dispersing over the wing.
Yeah, and then you get mixed, right?
Yeah, exactly. You have a mix of the 2, right? So the biggest concern really is rime because that's going to now disperse, the airflow. Clear ice has a big concern as well, but it's less about the airflow per se. Like this is very general, but it's more because of the weight. It's huge weight.
Big time.
So the airflow, it's really over clear ice is going to just cover the wing perfectly. It should be the same shape of the wing.
Yeah.
But now I don't know the weight of it. I'm sure somebody knows out there and they can let us know what it is, but the weight per whatever square foot of ice.
Right.
But I'm sure it's
a lot.
Insane.
Yeah, it's probably a lot.
Right.
Sure.
So that weight on the wings, when those wings aren't made to have that, is really, really critical. Right.
Certainly.
So we don't talk a lot about carb ice, but at this time of year, if you are flying an aircraft that has carb, it's really, really critical because, and I've had this situation on the Cardinal that I fly because that one's carbureted, is okay. So we're worried about flying into the clouds, right? Flying into the clouds and freezing temperatures, we're going to get ice probably, right? But any sort of precipitation, that's going to be our issue on the wings. Carburetors are even more affected by it. And that can just be the moisture in the air. It can be a really, really humid day. And you take off, you're between 5 degrees and minus 15. And now you have carb ice all of a sudden. So anyone who is flying, we won't go too deep into it, but anyone who does fly carbureted engines now start making it a good practice to check that all the time, right?
Yeah.
Pull the carb heat. Even after you took off, you're just clearing the circuit, pull the carb heat, check. If it's running rough, then let it clear out, right?
Right.
Things to think about.
Yeah.
Some are even, some carburetors are nice that so some are like, it's either all on or all off.
Right.
But some of them you can actually vary it. And so if you can do that, I know in our plane we have a carb heat gauge. And so you can crack it so it just stays above 5 degrees.
The Cardinal.
Yeah. So you could just keep it just above that critical zone there, right? It's actually funny. I'll talk briefly about a little story. So I was flying with an Australian guy out of there. And he was here, just families here and work and stuff like that.
I remember his voice, actually,
Yeah,
every
awesome
time he
guy,
calls.
great pilot.
Yeah.
But I remember we came in and he had never done winter flying, like Canadian winter flying.
Right.
And he goes, you're going to have to teach me all about carburetor ice because I don't know anything about it. It's just not a concern in Australia. And I said, funny enough, look at this carb ice sheet that we have. And who put it out? And it was the Australian Aviation Authority.
That's hilarious.
I said, this is the thing. This is the biggest misconception is that you have to have snow and ice and all that. I said 5 degrees is now a critical zone for carb ice, right? I may not be worried about it going on my wings, but in the carb, it's different, right? Because we have that Venturi, right? And so you have all this cold fuel going through there and hot parts, and you just have all this huge variation of temperature that's going to cause a potential for this ice, right?
Definitely, yeah.
So anyways, I thought it was kind of funny because we don't deal with this in Australia. So
Who published it?
Yeah. So we got up in the air. So our worry is clear and rime ice. Although if we're going in the clouds, we should have a good understanding of that, right? If we're doing IFR flying.
Yeah.
But more so for the VFR pilot, we're going to be worried about the possibility of freezing up the brakes or, it's the frost on the wings. That's for everybody, but that's going to be a big one. So you go up, you do your flight. We're not immune to ice. We could have impact ice, right? Just because we're not carbureted, we could have impact ice, but pretty rare unless you're flying through the clouds. So we won't go into that.
Right.
So now you come in, you've done your flight. you've landed. What are some considerations, runway conditions, things like that we should be worried about?
Yeah, so runway conditions for sure. We don't really have a publication at Collingwood for the runway surface condition, but you can definitely, if the flight wasn't that long, then it should be fine. The consideration for fuel, so you'd want to fill the fuel tanks up ideally.
Why would we want to do that? What would be the advantage there?
To avoid any humidity from causing water in the tanks and freezing overnight if it does get cold, right?
And it could also, because that fuel comes pretty well right to the top, it can also help alleviate frost.
Frost from
it's not going to be the whole way, but it can help for sure.
Yeah, so that humidity or whatever freezing over time. Anything else?
Yeah, so you're saying the keeping the fuel tanks full. Yeah, the runway. So we don't have anything that is going to give us a runway surface condition here at Collingwood. We could look that up in a different airport if we were going somewhere else.
Yeah.
But here we got to look at really just visually, right? Flying over. When we do if let's say we're joining overhead for midfield downwind, looking at the runway condition, because things can change pretty rapidly around here. Should be similar, and they do a great job scraping the runway here. They do
exactly.
So it's never really an issue with snow.
Yeah,
it's normally ice because you might have. Let's say you're flying later in the day. Now later in the day is 4:30, 5 o'clock, and it's dark.
Yeah.
During the day we have this nice bright sun, creates some puddles. Now the sun goes down, the temperature drops by 10 degrees or so, and now everything's ice. So it's really tough to pick that up. So one of the big things that I always say is we really always preach not to be on the brakes, but even more so
in the winter.
That can really mess things up. And just be on the rudder, hold that center line, right?
Yeah.
We always teach a stabilized approach, but if you're off the center line, that should always be a go around, right? We shouldn't land on one side or the other.
Yeah, definitely.
Even more so in the winter because you're going to have less tolerance because you may have less friction on the tire, right?
Yeah.
So we have this index called the Canadian Friction Index, Runway Friction Index, right?
Yeah.
Which is a great thing to go if you haven't been through it with your instructor lately, to go through it again, and that will help tell you how much crosswind you can even take. Now we don't have an actual CRFI value here.
Yeah, so we gotta guess, right?
But it can give you an idea. If you know that the surface condition isn't ideal, it's not 100% bare and dry, and we have a 15 knot crosswind, maybe looking at that, you're going to see that maybe it's not the best day to go up and fly and test our skills, right?
Right.
We don't want to Tokyo drift down the. That's dating myself, but you don't want to be sliding sideways down the runway, right?
Exactly. So consider those charts and then apply any variation that you deem fit to your takeoff landing distances too, right?
Yeah, great point. Awesome point, because we kind of forget about that in the summer. We're spoiled, right? So now if there's any contamination on the runway, we got to start adding 10% or whatever it says in your POH, right?
Even 50 up to 50%, because you want to consider pilot error too, right?
Yeah, and skill, right? Yeah, skill's a big one, right? We forget about that. You know what? Maybe I haven't landed in snow and ice for whatever, a year.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we want to make sure that we have enough runway. We're so lucky here with 5,000 feet, but we're not always coming into 5,000 feet, right?
Exactly.
So it's good practice, even though we know that we're going to have enough time to take off and land and all that here. Still go through the motions, right? We make every student do it on every flight.
Yep.
Give us our takeoff and landing distances in the single engine. Give us our single engine rate of climb. All of these things. It's very, very important. We need to know this information because we might be flying into a 2,000 foot runway next, right? So now we've landed, we've taxied. Now we're going to shut the airplane, close it up for the night. What are some things that we want to do to have that ready so it's ready for the next day or the next student?
Yeah. So we talked about it at the beginning, but you're going to have an engine cover, right? So you put that back on, and then as well, if you have a block heater, then you would plug plug it in, and that keeps the oil warm. Yeah. And the engine cover will help prevent that shock cooling effect on the engine. And then any covers at all, like your pitot cover, that sort of thing. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, just a couple things to kind of circle back to that maybe we said it and I just forget it, but it's a couple considerations. When we're doing our run up, it's now going to be icy out on the taxiway. Be ready to, when you rev up the engine, if you're going to start sliding,
I was going to mention that too.
Come back on the throttle. So just be ready for that.
Yep.
A lot of people, they toss the throttle up and the head comes right down into the checklist. They don't really pay attention to what's going on outside. Right. It's an easy trap to fall into.
Or they freeze when it starts moving. They just kind of sit there and wait for it to stop.
Right.
Power idle.
Stop the airplane. Maybe find a place that is bare.
Reposition.
Reposition. You know what? Not that we want to advise this at Collingwood because we don't have a ton of time necessarily, but maybe your only option is to do it on the runway. Get into position and do it if the time permits.
Yeah.
It's not ideal, but definitely it's better than not doing a run up.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
Because we're not going to go, you'll hear a million people that'll say you don't need to run up every time. Run up every time.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
You don't know if the last person did it. You don't know how well they did it. You don't know if something's changed.
Right.
It's maybe different if it's a commercial op that you fly that plane all day. You know everything that's going on with it. The airplane's warm, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I can't comment on that, but for us, you haven't been in that plane. It's your first time in it.
Yeah. On that note, I would think that using the whole runway too, especially if there's any contamination.
For sure.
So maybe if you're doing a backtrack and other people are joining you, or maybe you're the third in the sequence, and then you think, I'll just take position early so I don't, hold everyone up at the end.
Right.
You really should use that whole runway, especially when you're doing continuous circuits as well, right?
Yeah.
If there's any contamination at all, like we said, it's going to increase your takeoff distance.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the other thing, just when you talk about shock cooling there, is thinking about that when you're coming in as well, right? We don't really want to just pull the power to idle and start descending.
Chop and drop kind of.
Yeah. Always keep that power in. I know when I was doing my training, I was really, I would do that a lot, I would just keep my altitude, pull the power pretty well to idle and pitch down and descend. And it took until I think it was my multi-engine flight test, which was right after my PPL. And the examiner was like, "Why are you descending with no power?" And I said, "I don't know. It's just what I've always done." And he's like, "No, keep the power up. Keep your speed up. Keep your true airspeed where you were planning to, or close to it, right? Keep that forward progression." And keep the heat in the engine.
Yeah.
And, with non-turbocharged engines that, you may be able to get away with it. But once you start getting into more complexities and turbocharged engines and stuff where they're super hot, you could really run into an issue, cracking a turbo or something. Yeah. So watching those cylinder head temperatures, really monitoring them and seeing if they're coming down really fast, that's a great indicator, right? That's why when we do forced approaches in the winter, we sometimes will go to adding a couple inches of manifold pressure and a notch of flaps.
Right.
It's not perfect, but at the end of the day, we don't want to destroy engines. We're not in the business of doing that.
Yeah, definitely not. No.
Awesome. Any final words, closing thoughts?
No, I think that was good. Definitely check the weather before you go flying.
Yeah.
And
a lot more variable in the winter, right?
It is. Yeah. So, and I know that it's very tempting just to get up on a day that looks half decent because with our winter weather and there's not too many nice days for flying. But definitely take consideration of all the things that we mentioned and it just make better pilot decision making overall.
Yeah, that ties into the one of our last podcasts, right?
That's right?
Talk about the decision making, your 3 strikes. That's all. Take that all into consideration. Awesome. So, if you have any questions, like we say, go over to the Instagram page, check it out, send us some questions. We'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't already gotten into flight training, start your discovery flight. Go out, do something to progress you towards becoming that pilot. So, thanks again, and we'll catch you next time.